All right, you are live, Ashley.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our 1 month out volunteer kickoff tonight. We'll get started in just a minute or so. We'll give folks some time to join, to find the link, get excited, get comfy, pull up your scorecard. We've got a lot to get to tonight. Thank you for being with us. Welcome, welcome. Thank you to everyone who's adopted a state. If you want to tell us in the comments what state you've adopted, if you haven't adopted a state yet, tell us what state you're thinking of adopting. Welcome. We are so excited to have you all here with us tonight for our 1 month out kickoff. We survived the debates and now we get to think about winning this election. So welcome everyone and thank you for being here. Cool. So as more folks are joining, it is so great to see everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ashley and I am part of the politics team here at Vote Save America. So I am going to be your host for the night. We'll give folks another minute or so to join and then we will kick things off and talk about everything you need to know to be an amazing volunteer and leave it all on the field for the next month or so. Well, welcome everybody. So my name is Ashley, and as I said, I'm part of the politics team here at Vote Save America. I adopted the fine state of Pennsylvania because that's where most of my friends are working on campaigns this year. I'm so excited to celebrate the work of volunteers and to help you take your first or next step to do all that you can in this election. So here's what we'll cover tonight. We will give you the inside strategy on our Adopt a State program. We'll tell you about what we've done so far and what you can do to help us fight for every last vote. Then we'll take you behind the scenes on what it means to be a campaign volunteer. We'll introduce you to some of our best volunteers and we'll play a little game to put their organizing skills to the test. So if you don't have your scorecards in front of you, make sure to open those up and get those ready. We'll use them later on tonight. And then we'll close things out with a few special guests who will remind us what's at stake and what each of us can do to step up and do even more for the next month. But before we dig into all of that, I want to tell you a little bit about our Adopt a State program for those of you who aren't familiar. Adopt a State is the place to go to find volunteer opportunities, resources, and strategy, and to be a really fun part of a really fun community of volunteers. Our folks are working in 6 battleground states, which we'll tell you more about. So if you haven't yet adopted a state, go ahead and go to votesaveamerica.com/adopt right now and choose the state that you want to help with. But before we get into all the fun for the night, I want to introduce you to someone who wanted to say hello, the host of Love It or Leave It and co-host of Pod Save America, former presidential speechwriter, Jon Lovett. Hey, Jon.
Hi, everybody. This is very exciting. Hi, Ashley. Thanks, everybody, for doing this. Thanks for being part of this kickoff. Thanks for being part of Adopt a State. I think it's really hit me anyway in just the last even few days since the debate, since the Supreme Court nomination has kicked off and everybody kind of came together to raise money to take back the Senate, that it's been a really hard year. It's been a really hard 4 years. And the pandemic and all the chaos and all the horrible things that have gone on, I think it could be easy to kind of lose steam right at the end, like right at the final moment when we need everybody to do as much as possible, when we need everybody to give it their all. So I'm just so grateful to everybody here who is participating and doing everything they can and trying to making sure they're registered, making sure their friends and family are registered, making sure they're volunteering, making sure they're donating, doing everything we can so that we know that whatever happens when we wake up on November 4th, election is November 3rd, right? I know that. I know when the election is. That we know we left it all on the field. We did everything we could. We didn't leave anything behind. That's the election's November 3rd. I know when it is. I know when it is.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm also just so appreciative that politics can be so awful. It can be people arguing. It can be what we saw in that debate from Donald Trump. It can be propaganda on Facebook and on Fox News, or it can be people coming together, volunteering, knocking on doors, reaching out to their friends and neighbors, trying to convince them to be part of this, trying to convince them to not be cynical, to do everything they can to help their country. And I feel so proud to be in the fight with everybody on this live stream, and my pod boys as well, and everybody at Vote Save America and Crooked. So that's it. That's all I got. Thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks for being part of it.
Yeah, thanks, John. And so if people couldn't tell from your name, you adopted Pennsylvania. Do you want to make the case why other people should adopt Pennsylvania?
Yes, adopt Pennsylvania. 2 reasons. Reason number 1, we have to win Pennsylvania. We need those electoral votes in the Electoral College. I didn't make the rules, but we need those Electoral College votes. And polls show it's close, but we can win there. And 2, we have the chance to flip the state legislature. And if we can flip the state legislature, that opens up the opportunity to make sure we protect Pennsylvania from gerrymandering, that we can have control of that state and actually, help people in that state after so their state government, the Republican-controlled legislature, has been so hostile to not just education, not just the healthcare, but to basic facts around the pandemic and taking it seriously. There's like a lot of good we can do by flipping a few state legislative seats in Pennsylvania. And we can do that by calling for trying to help Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win in Pennsylvania and trying to help up and down the ballot. That's my pitch.
Good pitch. Amazing. So
thanks.
Thank you, John. I know you're literally in the middle of recording a pod right now. So thank you so much for being here. We'll let you go. But I know, so for folks who have already adopted a state, we really want to drive home the point tonight that even though you may have signed up, you chose your state, you committed, there's always more that we can all do. And so that's what tonight is going to be about, is helping all of you really commit fully for the next 33 days. Today is almost over on the East Coast. So basically a month to do every single thing that you can, to leave no votes behind, to fight for every last vote. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'm so excited to fill you in a little bit more about why these 6 states are so important. I'm going to pass it over to Crooked Media's political director, Shaniqua McClendon, who's going to fill you in on why we chose these 6 states and what we've done so far in the Adopt a State program. And Shaniqua, as I'm pulling up some slides for you, do you want to tell us what state you adopted and why?
Yes. As you can probably see in my name, I adopted North Carolina. The number, I'll say the number 3 reason is because I'm from there. Number 1 is Tom Tillis. I used to work for Kay Hagan, and I'm from North Carolina, so I've seen what Tom Tillis has been doing for most of his career there. But he, one of the most egregious things he did was sneak abortion language into a motorcycle safety bill. But there's a long list of things he's done. But by and large, he just should not be in the Senate. He should not be representing North Carolina. So that's my number 1 reason. Number 2, there's so many things that you can do in North Carolina. There's a governor's election, so re-electing Roy Cooper, as I mentioned already, getting rid of Tom Tillis and electing Cal Cunningham, well, important as well, electing Joe Biden in North Carolina and turning North Carolina blue again. There's also an opportunity to flip the state legislature. And if anyone knows anything about what Republicans have done in North Carolina with voter suppression, flipping the state legislature will mean so much to the state. So there's just a ton of opportunity in North Carolina. So if you haven't adopted a state, I think you should adopt it. And if you have, you might as well sign up for North Carolina and help us out.
Amazing. I love that. So take us through all 6 states, let everyone see all their options. So I think people should adopt Pennsylvania, but we'll let everyone make up their own minds. Go ahead and fill us in on why these states matter.
Yeah. So we picked 6 states. We decided on these states last year based on all of the information that we had, historical information, but also looking at 2018. And Arizona, so Arizona is a state that has voted for Republican presidents for the past 20 years, but Arizona is also a changing state. There are a lot of young people there. There are a lot of people of color, and there are also a lot of, the state's electorate is pretty evenly split between Democrats, Republicans, and independent voters. So there's just a lot of opportunity there, and the state has been trending blue. In 2018, we saw 4 statewide Democrats win elections and flip seats in Arizona, including Kirsten Sinema. So there's a lot of opportunity there. This could be the first time in 20 years that it votes for a Democratic president. And, you know, as the slide says, in 2018, there was a record 2.4 million new voters voting in Arizona. So it's just a state that has been slowly trending towards Democrats. And if we can just kind of force it over this year, we'll probably have it in our column for years to come. Florida is, you know, Florida is just a state that constantly goes back and forth. So both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are hoping to pick that state up. It has 29 electoral votes, so it can determine a lot. It likely will, you know, if we can see what the results are there, we can probably have a really good indication on who's going to win. But it's also a tough state. It's really diverse. There's a lot of different people in the state. Even within the Latinx community there, there's a lot of diversity within that community. So there's a lot of messages that need to get out to speak to people and, you know, help them decide who they're going to vote for. But also there's an opportunity, and I skipped this in Arizona, there's an opportunity to flip the state legislature in Arizona, a Senate race. In Michigan also has a really important Senate race. So Gary Peters is running in Michigan, and we need Gary Peters to win if we have any chance of flipping the Senate this year. Gary Peters keeps his head down, but because of that, and he does his work, but because of that, a lot of people don't have a good idea who he is. So that race is going to be really important. But Michigan is also one of the 3 states that Donald Trump won last year that we were not expecting him to win. I have looked at the margins so many times. It was 10,704 votes that Donald Trump won by, which is an amount of votes that we should be able to overcome. And in 2018, we saw several seats flip, House seats, and we also saw Gretchen Whitmer get elected and flip the governorship. So a lot of work has been happening in Michigan since 2017, and if it can continue and have the impact that we expect it to, then we could bring Michigan back to our side. And then my favorite state, North Carolina. In 2008, North Carolina, you know, went for Barack Obama. In the past 2 elections, unfortunately, they did not vote for the Democratic presidential candidate, but there's a lot of reasons that North Carolina is on this list. I mentioned several of them when I first started. You could flip the state legislature, re-elect Roy Cooper, elect Cal Cunningham, and then go blue for Joe Biden. But additionally, in 2016, Democratic Governor Roy Cooper actually won alongside Trump. So North Carolina has a lot of voters who are willing to split the ticket. I think even looking at the Senate race there and the presidential race, it's not going to be uniform down the line. People really dislike Tom Tillis, and Roy Cooper is he is the most popular elected official in the state. So there's just a lot of opportunity there to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, but voters there are not as predictable as you would expect. So there's a chance to flip that state. Pennsylvania is another state that we expected to win in 2016 that we didn't. Trump did really well in a lot of rural parts of the state, and just generally across the state overperformed. So, but then in 2017, we saw Connor Lamb win a special election. So the state is one that we're going to have to do a lot of work in. You know, I'll agree with Lovett. We do need people to adopt Pennsylvania because we absolutely have to win Pennsylvania if we want to win next year. Sorry, not next year. The election is this year in November. So it's a state that, you know, if you have extra time, I would definitely encourage you to pick up some shifts there, help flip it blue for Joe Biden, also elect a new legislature because they have a lot of gerrymandering issues there as well. And finally, Wisconsin, another state that we were not expecting Trump to win, but he won by less than a point. Both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, Trump won by 0.7 points. So they, you know, in Wisconsin in 2017, they got to work, and we saw the fruits of that work in 2018 and 2020 2020 earlier this year with some local elections, but we're able to elect a Democratic governor, and the Wisconsin state or specifically Wisconsin Republicans have been known to be pretty awful. But I think voters in Wisconsin are sick of all of the things that they are doing. So again, there's an opportunity there to just keep building on the work that the Wisconsin State Party has been doing since 2017 to help get Donald Trump over the finish line. But generally, all of these states are the states where Donald Trump won by his smallest margins. And we feel like if we can just build on the work that has been happening, we can flip all of these states for Joe Biden.
Awesome.
Yes,
yeah, fill us in on what we've done so far in the program.
Yes, so really quickly, I know I've been chatting for a while. Thank you to everyone who has signed up to Adopt a State. I've been chatting with some of the groups, and they have been so profusely grateful for all of the work that you all have been doing. Able to reach so many more voters, and the money that you all have donated has helped them just expand the work that they are doing. From all of the support that you all have provided, 3.5 million calls have been made to voters. And these calls are so important because for people who are on the fence about a candidate or on the fence about voting, these calls help them make up their mind. Same with the text. Just contacting voters is so important, especially in this election, especially since we can't knock on doors this cycle. So the work that you all have been doing has helped us reach so many people. And then register 600,000, contact 600,000 unregistered voters, which again will make the difference. Expanding the electorate is a big part of what we need to do to win. So bringing in those new voters and getting them to vote is really important. So, just generally, when we started this program, I didn't know how it was going to go, but all of you have made it an absolute success, and you can see that in the numbers here. So thank you for everything you've done, and I'll hand it back over to Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Shaniqua. So it's amazing everything that has happened so far, but there is so much left to be done, and that's what tonight is all about. So if you're volunteering once a week, we're going to ask you to volunteer twice a week, 3 times a week. We just want to help everyone up level a bit. Before we talk to some of our incredible volunteers, we're going to get a little into some strategy stuff, which I know you all totally love and geek out on. I, however, am not one of those people. And so I'm going to tell you a little story about how I realized that Donald Trump was president in 2016. So I'm here in New York City, and Trump and Hillary were around the corner from each other watching the results in different places. And I was at her field office in Lower Manhattan, and I saw a tweet hours before they called it. I saw a tweet that said, 2 sand trucks have just pulled up in front of Trump Tower. And I have worked a lot of events with President Obama in the city before, and I knew that they always had sand trucks out in front of the building where he was, just for like a security precaution, so no one could drive a car into the building or whatever. And so I saw that tweet early in the night, and I showed it to a friend, and he was like, "What does that mean? Like, why are you upset about this?" And I was like, "That's it. He's president-elect. That's what they do for the president." So that is how I found out who had won the election, which is not a very smart or strategic way. So I am going to pass things over to 2 guys who are a lot smarter about these things than I am. Best-selling author and co-host of Pod Save America, Dan Pfieffer, and co-host of Pod Save America, host of The Wilderness, and former Obama speechwriter, Jon Favreau. I'm going to pass it over to you 2. Please let us know what we should be looking out for on election night. Will we even know on election night? When do we freak out and move to Canada, I guess, is really my question.
Ashley, that's such a sad story.
I know, isn't it? But I melted down at that point. I couldn't watch after that.
That is brutal. So election night, Dan, are you nauseous yet? Just hearing about election night?
When Ashley even brought this topic up, I had a pit in my stomach. And the truth is, when you ask this question, what are we looking for in election night? I can tell you what we'll be looking at, which is the underside of our desks, where we'll be hiding the entire time.
I think the first thing for everyone is, like, at some point there will be exit polls throughout the day, late afternoon, and then there'll be like a second series of exit polls, and then you'll start seeing some of the cable networks talk about the exit polls. So the first thing we should all know is that we should completely not pay attention to any of those exit polls, right?
Yes, I mean, as you know, as a veteran,
As we have to say this to ourselves, of course, because
Yeah.
I will be looking at the exit polls very excited, but we should not be excited about the exit polls.
if the exit polls are good, do not get your hopes up.
And if they're bad, then that's not good.
I mean, it's all fake, right? Like,
Well,
how we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to modulate our emotions to deal with either if Joe Biden wins, we're gonna be very happy. If Donald Trump loses, we're gonna be very, very upset. And how we felt at 7 p.m. is not really going to impact that in the end. There are, I was thinking about trying to think about this in a serious way, which is, you're right. The exit polls are interesting. They are more accurate oftentimes in telling us about who voted than who they voted for. And so, because you famously worked for John Kerry, and the first exit polls showed that John Kerry was going to beat George W. Bush. One of John Kerry's aides.
Didn't happen.
He was not president, young people. Went in and said, congratulations, Mr. President. That did not age well. And I think that's even more true in this election, because the vast majority of exit polling is done standing outside of a polling place and talking to people. And so now they've never done it this way. So I think the information will be something to be even more skeptical of. It's just something basically to provide cable chatter for a few hours before you start getting actual results.
And so in terms of the actual results and knowing the night of the election, a lot of you may already know this, but we should just go over it, because there's going to be an unprecedented amount of mail-in ballots. We may not know on election night. In fact, we probably won't know the result in many states, because there are really dumb laws in a lot of states, including 4 of the 6 battleground states that Shaniqua was just talking about, where election officials can't start counting the mail-in ballots until, with some of them, it's 7 a.m. on election day. Some of them, it's when the polls close, which is even crazier. And so a lot of these states can't actually start counting. And we know from at least every single poll we've seen that Democrats especially are going to be using mail-in voting, and Republicans are going to be voting in person. So it's going to very much skew the results as they start counting them. Hi, whoever down there.
And on top of that, in most of these states, ballots can be counted. Ballots that were postmarked by election day can be counted for some number of days after that. It's 3 days in Pennsylvania. It's 6 days in Wisconsin, I think. 9 days in North Carolina, I believe. So in a close race, the state is almost certainly not going to be called for a number of days, because for 2 reasons. One, the number of outstanding ballots could be quite high, and also, usually the way the networks decide to call the election is they look at the exit polls, they compare it to the results based on their swing counties. My suspicion is they're going to have very little confidence in their exit polls in this situation, and no one wants to make the mistake of 2000 and calling Florida for the wrong candidate again.
And what you should all realize is when results start coming in a state like, let's just say Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, when the results start coming in, they will skew probably more Republican and probably more pro-Trump, because the first ballots that will be counted are probably in-person ballots, and that will skew Republican. So if you start seeing Trump ahead in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in North Carolina, don't freak out, because the mail-in ballots are likely being counted late. Maybe not even that night, maybe in the days to come. So the 2 states where we will know something more on election night that we've talked about of the 6 battleground states are Florida and Arizona. Florida, you can count the mail-in ballots starting a couple weeks in advance, and same thing with Arizona. So in those states, once polls close, probably the first results we'll get will be a lot of the mail-in ballots that they had already received up until that point, right?
That's right. Florida dumps in all of the mail-in ballots at one time, generally. So we will get very, very excited about Florida very quickly, because
I was going to say the opposite will happen in Florida.
And if anyone who remembers 2018, or frankly 2016, remembers that exact feeling of a large Democratic lead getting whittled away as the in-person ballots in the rural counties come in. I think, but we are likely to Florida is the state where we are most likely to have an answer on election night of the battleground states. And if Joe Biden wins Florida, we should all feel very, very good because he's cutting off a lot of the pass that Trump could have to 270. It's not a guarantee we'll get Florida results on election. In 2012, they didn't call Florida for 7 days after the election because it was so close, and 2000 famously 37 days. But one thing to also look at this is states don't operate in isolation, right? Like we will know looking at what we see in Florida, even if it's not definitive, is Joe Biden, how is he performing in suburban counties? How is Trump performing in rural counties? And that, they're not exactly the same, but it will tell us a lot about what is probably happening in the other states. I remember distinctly in 2016 on election night when the Florida numbers started coming in, and then hearing from some of our former colleagues who were working for Hillary that there were two problems. Either the Florida model was wrong or they had just lost the election, because it meant if Trump overperforms in Florida, he's overperforming everywhere. And if Biden's overperforming in Florida, he's overperforming everywhere. So we won't get anything definitive, but you will have a sense of how to feel about things. And Georgia is another state that comes early. And if Biden does very, very well in Georgia, that bodes well for a bunch of other states with large suburban populations.
Yeah, there's a difference between knowing the official results and the networks being able to call states and us having a pretty good idea of where the election is going. And I do think that's primarily because of Florida, because Florida is a very large, diverse state that is a lot like the American electorate as a whole. And so like you said, you'll be able to look at counties around Tampa, and they will look a lot like suburban counties in the Midwest, and you'll be able to look at counties in northern Florida that are a lot like other counties in the South, and same thing with the East Coast of Florida, Miami. So like you said, there are parts of Florida that will move like other counties in other swing states. And so probably by the end, if we don't have states called, by the end of the night on election night, we'll have a very good idea of, how much Trump is underperforming or overperforming his 2016 margins in a number of very sort of diverse, stereotypical counties, bellwether counties throughout the country.
Yeah, and I think the other way to look at that is everyone has an idea of what they think the electorate's going to look like. How many Democrats, how many Republicans, what the turnout will be in suburban areas. And that is what that model of what the election looks like is what informs the polls we're seeing, right? And that was in 2016. It became very clear that the estimation of what the turnout among what would come to become Trump's base was too low in the polls, which is why Trump outperformed them. And so we will know whether what we believe the electorate looks like and what the Biden campaign believes the electorate is right on election night. And if it's right, and the polls look somewhat like they do now, then there's reason to feel very good, even as Trump has a nominal lead in some of these states based on election day ballots.
All right, well, that's it. And by the way, Tommy, we can see what you're writing in the chat, so I just want you to know that.
And so can everyone else.
Yeah. I think I unmuted myself too. What's up? I got control now.
Subscribe to the message box.
Well, thank you guys. So just thinking about election night makes my stomach hurt. So we will put that aside and talk about some more uplifting things, and we will hear more from Tommy in a little bit. But Dan and Jon, thank you so much. So I am so excited now to introduce you to a few folks. First of all, someone who is a familiar face. If you are a fan of Crooked Media, if you watch her on Instagram Live, Cooking with Jon Lovett, Priyanka Arabindi, Crooked Media's brand marketing manager. She grew up outside of Chicago, so she adopted Wisconsin. And she is also, I know, one of the most active members of the Crooked staff that volunteers in her free time. So Priyanka, I'm so excited to have you here to introduce everyone to a few of our amazing super volunteers.
Hi, thank you for having me. Wow, my heart is beating so fast. The comments are going crazy. This is wild.
Awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your first time volunteering? Were you nervous? How did you get over it? And then I know you're going to chat with Abigail, one of our super volunteers, and she'll share her story as well.
Totally. So my first volunteer experience was relatively recently. It was in 2018 ahead of the midterms. And it was for Katie Porter, which makes me very proud every day, which is a plug for volunteering. If you volunteer and then your candidate gets elected, you then every time they do something that is good or exciting or like, I don't know, Katie Porter also just like, wow, bang for my buck there. Like every time she is on my Twitter feed with a whiteboard, I feel incredible. And I'm like, hey, I helped do that and feel really good. But yes, that was my first time volunteering. I canvassed with my friend Cody. We drove down to Orange County. And I actually wrote down a few things after that experience, which I'm happy to kind of like run through really quickly because a lot of my preconceived notions of what volunteering would be like were, I really reassessed after that because it was a lot different. So first of all, it's way less difficult than I ever anticipated. The campaign actually gives you all of the information that you would need ahead of time. And same goes for all of these kind of phone banking, text banking experiences. You get trained. So it's not like they're, throwing you into the deep end and you just got to sink or swim. Like, do you know their position on everything? Like, no, you get trained up on what's happening and it's like not overwhelming in that way. It's also not like a full day commitment. It's as much time as you have. So if you have half an hour, fantastic, use that half an hour. But if you have like 3 or 4, great, like spend an afternoon doing it. It's not like all or nothing, which was a big thing too in my mind. I also ended up having like really nice conversations and interactions with people, even if like they weren't the same party as me or, weren't interested in the candidate. People were generally pretty nice to me face to face. It's a little tougher on the phone, but it's nothing you can't handle. Like what's the worst that happens? Someone is like, don't call me again. Great, fine. You did it. You made the call. And I don't know. I found the whole thing to be pretty fun, but I'm happy to talk to Abigail and Hannah about their experiences. I know that they've also been volunteering this cycle and have a lot of great tips to share with everybody. Ooh. Did I lose you? Where's Abigail?
I'm here. Hi.
Hey, great to see you. I would love to hear more about which state you adopted and why, and then some of your volunteer experiences this cycle.
Sure. So I adopted North Carolina because I went to college there. And also my first volunteering was in North Carolina while I was in college for Obama in 2008. So that made it a very positive first time experience because as Shaniqua said before, Obama won North Carolina that year. But this year I've had a very good kind of time for my own anxiety volunteering. But I also had one woman who I spoke to this summer who was 80 years old. And when I called her, it was about applying for your absentee ballot. And she was very nervous because her husband was in his 90s and had very poor mobility. And she just didn't know how she was going to be able to cast her vote. So I walked her and her husband through how to go and print out their applications for their ballots and get them all filled out. And when we were done, she thanked me and she started to cry and just told me how much it meant to her because they were just so overwhelmed with all of it. And that was kind of like a really nice, warm, fuzzy feeling to have from volunteering. Yeah.
It feels so good when fundamentally you're helping someone do something, whether it's get their ballot or register to vote or learn more about the candidates and what they want to do for them. It feels really good.
Yes, for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And then Hannah, if you're here, I would love to hear more about your experience volunteering this cycle, the team that you joined, but also kind of why you are getting involved.
Hi, Priyanka. I adopted Arizona because my good friend lives there and I wanted for us to flip it blue together. I hadn't volunteered with politics before this year, but I was going through kind of a rough time at the start of this year because I had just finished with chemotherapy for lupus and I felt pretty isolated with a lot of pent-up energy I wasn't really sure what to do with. So I adopted a state, and as I was volunteering, I realized that I really had a lot of power in my own story and that I could be an organizer. I found a community in the Adopt a State program, And I realized that we don't have to go through elections alone. As long as we show up for each other, that's enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And those personal stories I know are so meaningful. And I'm sure you've experienced this when talking to people as well, but that really helpful, and connecting with people on that is, what changes minds and what gets people on board.
Thanks, Priyanka.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Priyanka and Abigail and Hannah. So folks out there, if you haven't volunteered yet, when you volunteer, you get to hang out with cool people like Priyanka and Hannah and Abigail and more folks that you're going to meet in a little bit. And you get to do the work that actually helps defeat Donald Trump. So signing up for the Adopt a State email list is a great first start. Following us on social media, great first start. But there's more that you can do. And so I thought it was important that we hear from one of the organizers leading the charge. Joining us from the Biden campaign is my friend Anatole Jenkins. He got his start organizing for President Obama's re-election campaign. He was the national organizing director for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, smart choice that he made. He was the Get Out the Vote director for the DCCC in 2018, and he is now the National Director of States Organizing for Joe Biden. Hi, Anatole.
Hi, Ashley, and hello to all the volunteers out there. And before we get started, just thank you guys so much for all that you guys have already done to elect Joe and Kamala. It means the world, and we've seen the difference that you guys all have made in the 6 states that you guys are operating in. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. So can you tell people who they signed up to Adopt a State but haven't volunteered yet, what do volunteers actually do and how do they help campaigns win?
Yeah, great question. So, volunteers are the backbone of our campaign and the backbone of our organization and the organization we've been building, and we'll ultimately need for the final 3 days until Election Day. So volunteers ultimately help ensure that we have the capacity that we need to talk to the voters that we need to turn them out, to persuade, to educate. They are, making phone calls. They are sending text messages. We are slowly but surely starting to do other types of events out there in communities, on college campuses, tabling. So volunteers ultimately give us the resources that we need to talk to the voters we need to between now and Election Day. But quite frankly, the truth is, with ballots already dropping, we need folks talking to and doing that work each and every day between now and Election Day. And so volunteers help us do that. And I think it's one thing that's important to note for folks who, we're in this phase where it's all about, we are heading into GOTV and it's all about the votes that we can get. And I think it's important to note that, as ballots are dropping in your state, as early vote starts in the state that you guys have adopted and are working in, it's important to just remember that people will vote in this election because a volunteer asked them to, because a volunteer made a plan with them on how and when and where they would vote, and because the volunteer reminded them to. And so ultimately, that's what volunteers provide to us. They provide to us the resources we need to go out and talk to the voters with the ambitious goals that we have heading into the next 33 days.
I love that. And so for folks who haven't signed up yet for a shift, and we will tell everyone in just a minute about a way you can volunteer with us to support the Biden campaign this weekend. But so if I'm a first-time volunteer and I go on the website and I sign up, I put in my information, do I get trained? Do I need to study up on everything? What happens next? And who's going to be there to help me when I show up to volunteer?
Yeah, great. Another great question, especially in this crazy virtual world. But look, we will be there every step of the way once you click that button to RSVP for an event. So, not only will you receive, contact information or information from one of our organizers in one of the states that you've adopted, someone from our team will contact you and reach out about what you can expect for your volunteer activity and the action that you're taking, the items that you may need to take that action, whether it's virtual or with some of the in-person events that we're doing. In addition to answering any questions that you may have to make sure that you are prepared before you actually start taking action. So there's that aspect. Then once you get there and it's the day of your volunteer shift, you will be trained. You will be trained on the tactic, but also trained on the why. also trained on, you know, why this tactic is so important, why we are talking to the group of voters that we're talking to that given day, why we're utilizing the particular script that we're utilizing. So you will get the whole ins and outs of why we're doing it and also how you do it. And then you can also expect whether you are, whether we're doing things virtually and you're sending text messages or phone banking or some of the other activities that we have, that you won't be doing it alone. You know, whether if you're making phone calls, you will be could possibly be in a Zoom room similar or an event similar to this, where you are, you know, with other like-minded individuals and like-minded volunteers who are taking the same activities as you and can, you know, share those best practices that you need. And then lastly, you know, we always want to debrief to ensure that we are taking your feedback to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible and making sure that the experience is as best for you all. And so that's sort of the trajectory of what you can expect right after you click that RSVP button.
I love that. That is amazing. Thank you for giving some more context to everything. So our ask, as you mentioned, people do things because they're asked. Our ask for everyone this weekend is to sign up for our Biden Weekend of Action. The whole Adopt a State community is going to be making calls to voters in these 6 priority states. So if you want to sign up as well, you can go to votesave.us/1 month. So this is our 1 month out weekend of action starting tomorrow. You'll be able to make calls to voters in these key priority states. And Anatole, is there any final things you want to say, any final asks or anything you want to reiterate for folks to just drive home like how important these next couple weeks are?
Yeah, look, there is nothing more important that each and every one of us can do right now than talking to voters in our targeted battleground states. That's ground zero, guys. Shaniqua went through the numbers. Michigan, Trump won that state by about 10,000 votes. That is not a lot at all. Florida, Trump, you know, won that state by less than 2 percentage points. You know, that is a ground game and those are ground wins. And that's, you know, the margins that we're living in for this election. And that is an organizing margin where organizing can and will make the difference. So again, organizing is how we will win. Talking to voters is how we win. There are tons of people out there who are only going to vote because they hear from you, because you ask them, you remind them, and you make a plan with them too. So thank you guys for what you're doing. And we'll see you out there in the field.
Awesome. Thank you, Anatole. So everyone, again, if you want to volunteer with us this weekend, go to votesave.us/1 month. I think it is in the YouTube video description. So we are a little behind schedule. So we are going to do a super speed round of a little refresher on a key organizing skill for all of you to know as you're volunteering. I'm going to screen share really quick. And then we will get into a little competition. Let's see. So as Anatole said, people vote because they're asked. People also volunteer because they're asked. Just like all of you were asked to be here tonight and then you showed up. And so in organizing, we use something called a hard ask. So I want to do a quick refresher on what that is. And then we're going to put 2 of our best volunteers head to head in a little competition. So a hard ask is not called hard because it's difficult, it's specific, it's unapologetic, and it's a clearly defined ask of a volunteer or a voter. And again, as Anatole said, people take action because they can, you know, they have the time to volunteer, they're old enough to vote, they do it because they want to, and they do it because they're asked, and that's where all of you come in. So when do we make hard asks? All the time, when we're texting, when we're calling, on social media or via email, and also when we're talking to our friends and family. So anytime you're talking to a voter or a potential volunteer, you need to make these hard asks. So some things that are really important to remember when you're making a hard ask, and we'll demonstrate them in a second. You don't want to use soft language like, could you give your time, or do you have time, or could you help out, or if you want to. You want to use that hard, clear, strong language of like, can we count on you? This is an opportunity to get involved. Do you want to participate in this? So really using language that helps people feel like they're a part of something and not like they're like being nice and doing you a favor. So in hard ask, we ask until we get a no. There are 3 different types of no that you might hear. Not now, which is like a scheduling thing. Not this, they don't want to do that thing. So maybe you need to suggest something else, or not ever. So the not ever people, we'll leave them alone. But in a second, we're going to demonstrate how to overcome some of these other no's. So the elements of a hard ask, and if you want to download or open up your scorecards so you can help be judges in our little competition, you're going to be looking out for these elements. So in a hard ask, the volunteer should always introduce themselves. They should form some sort of connection with the other person and what matters to them. They want to create a sense of urgency. So not like, could you volunteer someday, but will you volunteer with us on Saturday, right? Create that urgency. We want the action to be really clear and specific, and we want to get an actual commitment. Someone saying like, yeah, maybe I'll volunteer someday is not good enough. You're going to ask until they actually say yes. And then once they say yes, you're going to confirm the next steps and any follow-up. So what comes next is, there's a link for you to sign up for this shift. What's the best way for me to contact you? Is it through text or email? So these are things that you can use if you're calling voters, but also in getting your friends and family to volunteer with you as well. Okay, so putting all that aside for a second, so we, over the weekend, members of our Adopt a State super volunteer community went head to head practicing their hard asks. We started out with 10 representing all 6 states, and we got it down to our final 2. We're going to go head to head in a hard ask battle of champions. But to put their skills to the test, we wanted to bring on someone who knows a thing or two about competition. And so I am so excited to welcome Olympic figure skater and activist Adam Rippon to the call. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Ashley, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited that you're here. I will tell you, my thing that I have done to deal with 2020 is to take figure skating lessons for the first time as an adult.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How is it going?
It's good. I'm learning crossovers. It's like, I sprained my wrist in the spring and I'm a little traumatized, but.
That's fine. That's why you've got 2 wrists, just in case you
Fair.
sprain one. So you're fine.
Perfect. So I know that not only are you an activist, but you also adopted a state. What state did you adopt?
I did. And I am actually watching this whole thing with a friend of mine. So I adopted Pennsylvania and she adopted Wisconsin, and she's actually going to be a poll worker in Georgia. So we've got a lot going on over here.
I love that.
Isn't that right? She's watching on the floor over there.
Hello. Welcome. Cool. So tonight, Adam, you are going to play the part of a volunteer with excuses. So we all have that friend who wants to post on Facebook, but won't really do anything. So your job is to give our superstar volunteers a little bit of a hard time. They're going to try and get you to sign up for a shift this weekend, and you're going to have a whole lot of reasons why you can't do that.
Great. Ashley, don't worry. I've given people a hard time before. So this is actually, I've method trained for this.
You were born for this moment. Awesome.
Yes.
So
and I wrote down some good questions that they might encounter. So
ooh,
I'm ready.
I like it. Perfect. Okay. So folks watching at home, get out your scorecards. You're going to help us judge this. And this is also great practice to know what it's actually like when you're volunteering. So our first competitor is Nancy. Nancy adopted the great state of Michigan. Nancy, I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock for you. So you have to get Adam to a yes in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, Ashley, you're killing me.
I'm sorry. We're so tight on time. Everyone's getting 2 minutes. So Nancy's going to pretend that she's making calls. We know Adam's a Biden voter, but she's going to try and get him to sign up for a volunteer shift.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, over to you.
All right, Nancy. Hey, I am a Biden supporter, but I've never volunteered before, and I'm worried that if I volunteer for the Biden campaign, my family is going to think I'm gay.
Well, Adam, listen, I love talking to first-time volunteers, so this is fabulous. And let's put your family aside for a minute. Just tell me, what do you think is the most important reason to get Biden into the White House?
Well, I'm going to say that I hate Trump, so I feel like that would be my most important reason. But again, it's the gay thing that I'm worried about.
You're worried about your family thinking you're gay?
They know.
I really think that what we need to do is think about the country, and you can deal with your family later. They have their problems, but I want you to think about what it will feel like on the night of November 3rd and whether you have done everything you can to save the democracy. So I really think—
I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way.
And actually, this is the best time to get involved because do you realize there are 33 days until the election and people are already voting? So this is absolutely the time to get involved. It's your lucky day because we have a weekend of action coming up and we're on the clock here. So I'm just going to pick a swing state for you. So I'm getting a Pennsylvania vibe.
Okay, yes. How did you know?
I just had a feeling.
Okay.
So is Saturday or Sunday better for you at 1 Eastern to phone bank?
You know what? Sunday is going to be tight. I think I have a hair appointment with Nancy Pelosi.
What about, well, so they're great. So you're on for Saturday at 1 o'clock.
I think I am, Nancy.
Perfect.
When
And
it comes to think of it, I think I'm on for 1.
Well, I have to tell you, Adam, that that's a great choice because I can tell that you are going to be gold on the phones and it's going, people, you're going to make those connections with the voters and it would actually not be fair to deprive the Biden campaign of that effectiveness because talking to voters is what's going to make the difference and what's going to turn them out. And it's the way we're going to win. So I already have all your info. I'm going to sign you up.
Time's up,
Nancy, this was incredible. I've never been pivoted. You took the reins.
I wanted to tell you, Adam, I'm going to actually sign you up for 1 o'clock Eastern every Saturday until the election. And then you'll be set with 5 events before November 3rd.
I love that.
I love it. Okay, that was amazing. So folks at home, give Nancy her score on your scorecards. We'll share who we think is the winner in a second. Adam, great job.
Thank you.
So our next competitor is Allie, representing the great state of North Carolina. She got very excited when she heard you were our guest. I'm sad we didn't have that moment on the call. And Adam, we're gonna let Allie introduce herself first. And so folks, give Nancy an extra point because she didn't get a chance to introduce herself because like Adam was raring to go.
I rushed into it.
Don't rush. Okay. Don't rush your jumps. Don't rush the hard
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Allie, over to you. You've got 2 minutes.
Okay. Hi, Adam. My name's Allie, and I'm calling with Fight for North Carolina. How are you doing today?
Allie, I am doing fantastic. What's going on over there?
I'm so glad to hear that you're having a great day. You know, I am also having a great day because I'm reaching out to fellow Biden supporters like me to ask them to join in the movement. Can I ask you the biggest reason why you're a Biden supporter?
Well, you know, Joe Biden, I think that he would make a great president. I'm also from Scranton, Pennsylvania, but I've got to tell you something. I phone banked for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So you can imagine the baggage that I have.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I know that the events of 2016 were kind of traumatic for so many people, myself included.
Yes, yeah. My therapist told me that I'm no longer allowed to interact with any Trump supporters anymore because I'm on the verge of a psychotic break. So,
oh man, well, I'm so glad that you're under the care of a therapist. Like therapy is great. I love my therapist too. But I know that this weekend I need people to join me in the movement. I need people to help make calls with me. Now I know that you've got baggage coming into this. I get that. But here, just we're calling a lot of voters that we think are related to Democrats. You know why we're doing that? Because we know that those voters are the most likely ones who are going to get out the vote and that can support Biden. And you know, you Scranton boys, you got to stick together. So are you going to leave it all out on the ice with us and sign up for a shift with me on either Saturday or Sunday? It's just 2 hours of your time.
Allie, I really feel like I don't have a choice. I feel like I have to say yes because
yes, you do. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah,
and you know, I'm going to be there too. You're going to be a part of such a big community. You're going to get really well trained. It is going to be an amazing day, and you know that you are going to make a difference. Thank you for joining me in this.
Allie, I can't wait. I've never been more invigorated to get out the vote in my entire life.
Amazing. So happy to have you as part of the movement. I'm going to follow up with you via text, okay?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Ooh, yeah, Allie got that one right in under the wire. Okay, I'm totaling the scores. Adam, what do you think about that? And we'll bring Nancy back for the crowning of the champion. But Adam, what did you think?
I've got to say, you know, both Allie and Nancy, I mean, I really tried to throw them off as best I could. And they are the queens of pivoting. That no matter what excuse I had, I always ended up, the final destination was always me phone banking at 1 p.m. on Saturday. There was no way I was getting out of that. Saturday was booked.
Yeah. Okay, folks watching at home, go ahead and tell us who you think, who won, who checked off all those boxes. Nancy, competitor number 1, or Allie, competitor number 2. We are getting so tight on time, so I added up my scores. Is this what it's like to be an Olympic judge? I don't know.
It's exactly like this.
The winner of the hard ass battle, a hard won fight, the winner of a Crooked Media Vote Save America merch gift package, including our new what is it called? Advent calendar to help count down to the election. The winner is from Team North Carolina, Allie. Yay,
Oh my gosh.
Way to go, Allie.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Nancy, I was scared.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was amazing. Thank you, Allie and Nancy. Thank you, Adam.
My pleasure.
We would love to have you really make calls with us at 1 on Saturday. So can we count on you to be there?
Yeah, let's do it. Sarah and I will both do it. We'll make calls on Saturday at 1.
I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much. So
You got it.
I'm so excited. We have a couple more folks for you to hear from quickly tonight. I am so excited to introduce our next speaker, DeRay McKesson. He is a civil rights activist focused on issues primarily around innovation, equity, and justice. He is a leading voice in the Black Lives Matter movement, co-founder of Campaign Zero, and of course, the host of Pod Save the People. Welcome, DeRay.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Hi, thanks for joining. So tonight we are celebrating volunteers and encouraging people to take that first step to volunteer or to do even more. I'd love your thoughts on, people power and how the folks on the call tonight and watching the stream on YouTube, how, can they make a difference? Are they important? What do you think?
Yeah, so it's an honor to be here. It really does take all of us. And the most important poll that we'll have is Election Day. So there are 3 things that come to mind. The first is that all good organizing is relationships. Like that is what organizing is. When I think about how we've done so much around the police or criminal justice, it is because of the relationship building. So when you're texting somebody, when you're calling somebody, when you're talking to your cousin, talking to your grandmother, your friend, like that is relationship building. And the best of what we can do is leverage those relationships to mobilize around things that we care about. So I'm in a lot of conversations with people and I'm like, hey, how's your day? What do you think about this? What's important to you? Biden, right? Like trying to help people sort of make that bridge between the life they live and the world that we're trying to build. The second thing is that, I've been in a lot of places, especially activist circles, Black and brown communities, where people are like, DeRay, the vote is not the thing, right? They're like, people have been telling us to vote forever. I voted my whole life. And, I'm somebody who voted my whole life. The first person ever permanently banned from Twitter was banned for raising money to try and get me killed. I've been dragged out of the police department by my ankles. We have a case before the Supreme Court right now because an officer said that he got hit with the rock at an event that I was at. They're like, I get it. And voting didn't stop any of those things. But we understand the importance of voting like we understand the toolkit to build the house. We think about justice and equity as this big house we're trying to build. And we have a toolkit, and there's no one tool that'll build the house. The hammer alone won't do it. The wrench alone won't do it. The screwdriver alone won't do it. It actually takes all of the tools in different parts of the house, depending on what we're trying to build, to actually get the thing we deserve. And voting is one of the tools. Can't build the house without it, but it's not the only tool you'll need to build the house. So we tell people that it is vote and protest and run for office and policy change. And that's how we help people understand it. That this is one of the important tools. It is a necessary tool, but it alone won't bring about the change we need. That doesn't mean we don't use it. It means that we use it and we use all the other tools in the toolbox. And the third thing is that what's at stake is that so much of this is reminding people that you might not be an enthusiastic voter, but when I think about this sometimes, even when I'm not the most enthusiastic, I'm voting for all the kids that I taught when I was a 6th grade math teacher. I'm voting for all the women in my life. I'm voting for all the queer people who I'm in community with. I'm voting for all the people with pre-existing conditions. That this actually is not only about me. I am voting for my interests, but I'm also voting for community's interests that I belong in. That there are 2 ways that we think about this. Either you are a resident or a neighbor. There are a lot of people who have nailed being a resident. A resident takes care of their house, their property, their lawn, their people. A neighbor understands that the only way that any of this works is if the neighborhood is healthy. A neighbor says, I might not have kids down the street in the school, but that should just be a good school because this is in the neighborhood. A neighbor says, people should have a grocery store to walk to in our space. Even if the food gets delivered to my house, I grow my food in the back. That like neighbors understand that the health of any one house is dependent on the health of the community. And the best of what you can do as a volunteer is help spread the message that people always tell me. They're like, DeRay, you are preaching to the choir. And I'm like, sign me up for the choir, right? Because I know that the choir is hard work. Being in the choir is rehearsal. It's learning new music. It's learning new skills. It's doing it with other people. The best choir director is like the best teacher is like the best organizer. That the best teacher walks into the classroom and knows that kids had magic way before we got there. That what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna marry the content to the magic, but the magic was there before they ever met me. And I'm gonna try and marry that content to the magic so that they can continue with that long after my class. What the best organizer realizes is that in community, that people already had core skills before we ever entered a community. Before you ever met them, they were already people who had skills. What you're gonna do is you're gonna deliver a message about what is possible and remind them about the power that they have. That is what you bring, but they already had skills. What the best choir director knows is that you had a voice before you joined the choir. And that what the choir director is teaching you how to do is use your voice with other people in ways that you didn't know how, to use your voice alone in ways that you didn't know how, to learn new music, to figure out how to be in community and sing the same song, but importantly, teaching you how to do things with your voice that you will carry with you long after the choir is gone. It's an honor to be here. You'll knock it out. Let's win, let's win, let's win.
Thank you so much, DeRay. That was incredibly inspiring. I don't know if you could see the chat, but people are already asking for us to clip this so they can share it. So we will do that for you, everyone at home. That was amazing. Thank you. And also, I think you win for like room raiders for the night by President. Congratulations.
See you later.
Thank you so much. Okay, folks, I know we are so close. We are like at time. We have one more person that I know you want to hear from in just a sec. But before I kick it over to Tommy to close us out, I just want to make some asks of you. You can see my screen. So if you have not yet adopted a state, go to votesaveamerica.com/adopt right now. Choose your state. Shaniqua laid them all out for you. If you have already adopted a state or after you do, make those hard asks of your friends and get them to adopt a state. And then no matter where you are in your volunteer journey, if you're new, if you're a pro, join us for our 1 month out weekend of action with the Biden campaign in the 6 priority states. You can sign up right now at votesave.us/1 month, and we will see you all there starting tomorrow. And to close things out tonight, I'm so excited to welcome the co-host of Pod Save America, host of Pod Save the World, Worldos, give him some love, former national security advisor to President Obama, Tommy Vietor. Hi, Tommy.
Hi. Hello. Am I
Hi.
on? There I am. I
You
don't have
are.
music.
So, yeah, you're here. I know you've been in the chat with everyone. What do you want to say to folks? We've got 1 month to go. What ask do you want to make of them?
Yeah, I've been talking to my people in the chat. First of all, thank you guys. Like, you guys are really good neighbors. That was a really great speech, Trey. I'm incredibly impressed. Thank you for being here. Look, we literally couldn't believe how many people signed up to be part of the Adopt a State program. I remember getting on that first Zoom and being slightly terrified that we had broken it. But it gave me faith back in June in the middle of like COVID and like tumultuous protests and all that was going on, that people were fired up and ready to do the work and that we could win. And now I think there's 300,000 people that are part of this program, and it's just really incredible. And so we are 33 days out, I believe. And I just wanted to say, like, we have to close this thing out by building on this momentum. And we cannot take anything for granted because elections can change on a dime. I remember sitting in Obama's Iowa Senate office in August of 2007, and I was on this polling call, and we were learning that we were getting our asses kicked. We were losing to Hillary Clinton. We were losing to John Edwards. And in some media markets, we were even behind Bill Richardson. But we clawed our way back, and we won Iowa, and we won the nomination, and we won the presidency because we had the best candidate and we had the best organization. And I know that is the case today too. It's just, we got to bring it home. And so, look, Donald Trump disgraced himself on stage Tuesday night, and the latest polling and the latest fundraising numbers look really good for Biden, but we just have to remember anything can happen, right? We're almost a month out from election day in 2016. Hillary was up 5 points. Then came the Access Hollywood tape. Then came the Podesta emails. Then came the Comey letter, right? So we have to emotionally prepare ourselves for big things to happen and for big events to change the race. But the beautiful thing about where we are now, the beautiful thing about early voting is that we can start banking votes now, right? So Jim Comey can write all the letters he wants. The Russian intelligence creeps can do whatever bullshit they're going to do. Facebook can be Facebook, but if we are getting our people to vote now, we're inoculated from those future events. And that only happens with a huge push from people like you guys, people like us. So if you can do an extra shift, or better yet, convince a couple friends to join you for a shift, it will make all the difference in the world. We can bank votes now that make sure election day feels a little scary, that make sure we have the president we want, that we can expand healthcare access for people and not rip it away from them, that we can improve our criminal justice system and not make it worse, and that we can have a human being with a soul and a conscience and some decency and a dog in the White House and not this monster. So thank you guys again. I'm just so unbelievably proud of all of you to be here with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. It means the world to us. It means the world to the Biden campaign. And let's bring it home.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy, so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. I know we have around 5,000 people are watching over on YouTube. Here on Zoom, we have a small number of our Adopt a State super volunteers. So if you're like, I want to be in the VIP lounge, Adopt a State, come hang out with us. We're doing all sorts of fun things. We have lots of pop-up calls. We do game nights. We do community yoga. So come join us, Adopt a State, and let's wake up on November 4th feeling better and happy, because I can't go through 2 months of thinking Trump is getting reelected. My birthday is very close to the inauguration. So I really want a happy birthday next year. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to all of our amazing super volunteers who are on the call tonight, and everyone behind the scenes, Matt and Aaron and EJ and the whole politics team. Thank you all so much, and have a great night. Bye everyone.